Self-Storage Made Simple podcast. We're going to make this a little more frequent because when Russell Nursesoff and I hang out, it always turns into an amazing conversation. Not to mention we're partners in our company and doing a lot of stuff that we want to keep people abreast of. So while I love talking to other people and bringing them on and exposing to you a bunch of other people's stories, I'm also like to spend some time really digging into the market and where it's at. Not just self-storage. We're going to talk a little boat and RV storage today. We're going to talk a little bit about some industrial small bay flex and really kind of, especially because of the timing of this particular episode, let Russell really dig into what it's been like in 2023, 2024. And one of the things I love about Russell, if you guys haven't seen the previous podcast episodes, you can get his backstory, but he is super tuned in to exactly what's going on in the market. So Russell, as always, thanks for coming on.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, man? Good to be here.
Doing fantastic. First thing I'm going to say is we are taping this episode on the Friday after Thanksgiving, early in the morning. So thanks for getting up and getting on. Second thing is this is going to air like right in between Thanksgiving and December and Christmas, kind of an interesting time of the year. And really excited to kind of talk about Q4 2024. It kind of doesn't feel real that this whole year is almost over already. Before I do that, what I want to say first is happy birthday, because you hit a pretty cool number today. You got the same digit twice. I'm not going to say which one. We'll let people in comments guess which of the double digits Russell's hit. But congratulations on hitting another milestone birthday.
Oh, major milestone. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it. And I'll tell you this, I'm very grateful and expressed that gratitude yesterday to have joined you and David Hansis at Safe Storage USA. It's been, as much as it's been a challenging year as far as the market goes, I'm going to let you dig into that. For me personally, it's been a year of amazing growth and a lot of excitement and amazing opportunities. So first and foremost, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I just want to take a second and tell you how grateful I am that we've been able to connect and you guys brought me into the company. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for being with us, man. We love having you, and I think you brought a lot of opportunity to us, and you opened a lot of doors for us. That's for sure. And we love having you as a team. But first and foremost, I wanna say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Right? Today is a Friday morning. We're still trying to recover from food coma that we were in since last night, and
isn't that the truth?
It went well, but also thank you for your birthday wishes. I am turning big 5-5. Just turned big 5-5. It was a great day for us. Well, listen, like you said, the year came and almost went by like really fast, and but this was a year of another year of learning, another year of interesting discoveries, interesting experiences. And another year of looking at the market and kind of taking a step back and like asking one big question: what the heck is going on over here? Like what are we looking at? What are we missing? What are we learning? So let's unpack this. In terms of self-storage, I'm noticing a very interesting dichotomy in the market. On one hand, markets slow down. On one hand, you see the transaction volume went down, and you talk to brokers, and they all confirming that, and they saying, "Hey, we're still doing deals, just not as many as we used to do before. It takes longer. People retrace this and the other." However, it's interesting because we happen to be buyers and sellers in this market, and I can tell you that it's almost like wearing two different hats. When you're a seller and you're looking to sell for that number that you have in mind, the offers that we see coming in somewhere in 8.5, 9 cap range. When you're a buyer, I'm yet to see 8.5, 9 cap deals, and everybody's asking, still asking 6, 6.5, or slightly under 6, depending on the location, the vintage of the property, size of the property, and whatnot. So what I've noticed is that what we've been doing is we've been just sending LOIs. We've been sending LOIs at the number that makes sense to us, not at the number that possibly making sense to the seller, might not be what they're looking for, but at the number that makes sense to us. I can't tell you we had a lot of success. We came close a number of times, only to learn that someone else just came in with a higher number and we were outbid. But being as it may, every experience teaches us something, and we're in the process right now. Actually, we submitted 2 LOIs right now, and we're waiting for the owners to respond. And lesson to be learned is, do not be afraid of submitting an offer that makes sense to you, whatever the asking price is. And asking price is not selling price. And do not jeopardize your underwriting. Do not just go in and, hey, do not make crazy assumptions just to make the numbers work. I think as a group, we tend to be on the conservative side. So that's our game plan. We're going to continue submitting LOIs, and we're going to continue making offers, and hopefully it's gonna pan out one of those days. That's in regards of self storage. Now, you mentioned that we also are looking at other different asset classes. One of them being is small bay industrial flex space. That's an interesting animal altogether. It's quite similar to self storage, yet it's very different from self storage.
Explain how it's similar.
Well, we're still renting the empty space, the garage with the garage door, and it just happens to be larger, and it happen to have a small office, and that space most of the time would be air conditioned and heated. But basically, it's the same thing. The only thing that's different is the tenants are different, and the structure of the lease is different. So whereas in self storage, it's a month to month lease, and we can adjust the rates literally as needed based upon the market needs and upon the market updates. In flex space, you're limited a lot more in terms of how often you can do that, because the leases usually it's a year, 3 or 5 year lease. The terms are so it's kind of good and bad. I mean, it is good because it provides you with the security knowing that the tenant will be there tomorrow, hopefully. And it's not so good because, unlike self storage, you won't be able to adjust the rates according to the market as often as you could in a self storage industry. But what amazed me the most, and what took me by surprise, is that flex space came out of nowhere, and it came into the spotlight, and it's that transition happened really, really fast. Whereas I think with self storage, it took a little while to go from unloved child of the commercial real estate to the it asset of the commercial real estate. I think with flex space, it came a lot faster. It happened a lot faster. So right now, it's not uncommon to see flex business parks to be selling in the high 5, low 6 cap rates, and those
And
numbers are absolutely insane.
I had a
Go
couple
ahead.
questions I want to ask you out of what you just said. And the first one is, for so long, I can, talking to people that were around for the early days of storage, people thought they were crazy for having month to month leases, right? They would go to the bank and the bank would be like, "Are you out of your mind?" Right. And for 50 years, right, public storage, been tracked since the 70s. Um, that was a positive for the industry. Interestingly enough, in the last year, year and a half, it hasn't been such a positive, especially for me looking at it from the development side of it, where for those you don't know, it's pretty common knowledge in the industry now, but the REITs, the big players, Public, Cube, Extra, they're playing a price war. And the opposite is happening now. We're seeing drastic drops in rental rates. If you use, Radius Plus, and they do a report, Tract IQ, Yardi, all the big data companies do these reports quarterly, and you're seeing like 10% year over year reduction in pricing. That's hard to take as you're operating a facility.
Well, it's more confusing to underwrite to those numbers, but at the end of the day, no one knows how long those numbers are good for. Now, that could be a teaser rate where you can come in and they say, hey, it's 50% off, come on in, and in the next 30, 60, 90 days, that number is going to double or triple, and we don't have access to that data. So that makes it more confusing and a lot more difficult to underwrite, especially if you need to finance the property and you're going to go to the bank and they're going to look at the current market rate available online. So yes, it presents a certain challenges. I think something has to happen in the industry where this is going to be a lot more predictable and a lot more stable, where those fluctuations of 100% up and down overnight will not be more of a common occurrence. I hope so, because it makes it very difficult for us as a small business operators to kind of compete in that, in the environment like that.
I think one thing we saw, this year is the REITs, CubeSmart and Extra, particularly that I interact with, recognize that they might shoot themselves in the foot long term from a lack of new development, and they actually started sharing instead of the street rates that we have access to or the web rates that we have access to with various data platforms that go scrape. Cube and Extra will now, in certain instances, in certain markets where they own a facility, will share their actual realized rates with developers that they have a track record with. They don't just give them away to anybody, but somebody that they feel they have an opportunity to maybe manage that store. So we've already seen a little bit of that understanding of like, hey, if we're going to play this game of offering these cut rates to get people in the door and then raising rates later, we can't kill new development because our whole thing is predicated on having more stores to manage and ultimately maybe more stores to own. So I'm interested to get your take on this. I've talked to a lot of people on it. I haven't really talked to you at all. We don't have a REIT managing our stores at this point, right? A little bit smaller facilities that you and David
Yes.
concentrated on, and we'll get into how much success you had with rates in those stores because it's actually a really cool thing. But I'm interested to get your take on ECRIs and this practice of dropping rates to the lowest possible level to get people in the door. And then you said, right, we see instances where a year later you're paying 300% of what you were paying you're getting the door rate.
Well, listen, I don't know if you remember that the commercial for club for the
Hair Club
hairline
for Men.
men. I'm not only a president, but I'm also a client. So I actually literally had to go and rent the storage unit because we sold the house and we moved into a smaller apartment. And I went into the one of the top five extra space actually in my town. And yeah, the starting rate was great. But then immediately within 60 days, I got a little tiny postcard saying, hey, you know what? We check in on the market conditions, whatever it is. And starting tomorrow or starting the first of the next month, your rate's going to go to XYZ. This is one
Notice it
of
was
the,
3 digits. I'm just gonna notice that it was a 3 digit number. It wasn't a two
I'm not going to
digit.
go into details, but listen, that's the nature of the beast. That's the way the business is being operated. And as a small business owner, who also run and owns and operates a self storage facility, I can tell you, that's the nature of the business. That's how it is. Now we're not as aggressive as the big boys because we still playing in a different sandbox. But the being able to raise your rents and being able to adjust your income, and that's the value add plan of any self storage owner, and basically you can't really fault them for doing it. It just is done on a massive scale, but they have a footprint to do it, ability and staying power to do it. So if it's going to go wrong and they're going to lose tenants or two or three or 10, they're not gonna cry it for too long.
Yeah.
For us, it's a big deal. So it's not exactly level field, but the structure and the value add game plan of a self storage business is basically the same.
I'm gonna follow this up with a question that amazes me because you and your partner David Hansis, who started out in 2019, bought this facility in Midland, Michigan. Really
Yeah.
interesting in hindsight because I think it's fair to say that you very likely wouldn't have touched this project with a 10-foot pole based on the demographics that you didn't really necessarily understand as well at the time. That being said, You owned the thing for like 13 months. You were able to really increase rates over that time to the point where you are charging significantly more than anyone else in the market, but still able to drive occupancy. Ended up being a fantastic deal for you guys and especially for your investors.
Yeah.
A very quick turnaround. The same thing's going on with the facilities that you still own, where you guys are top of market price wise and by a fair margin. How are you able to achieve those kind of rates in a market?
All right, so a couple of points that I want to make. Point number one, in terms of not being able or not being willing to touch the same facility today in this market environment compared to the first time that we got the facility. Funny enough, facility came back on the market, and about 6 or 8 months ago, it came back on the market, and we were given an opportunity to actually take a look at it again. And unfortunately for the new owner, he came back on the market at less, significantly less than what he paid for. So I think it's a function of a market, and I think it's a function of where we're at in the market cycle, and the appetite of investors' appetite and owners, operators' appetite for risk. When everything is booming and everybody's going, hey, crazy over and bidding each other, overbidding each other on every property, it's a lot easier to get away with making mistakes or slightly overpaying for a property, because the market kind of pushes you in the back. It kind of gives you that buffer zone where it's okay to make a mistake, but you're still gonna come out on top. This is not a market like that no longer. This is not where we're at right now. Absolutely not. You need to be super careful. You need to be super conservative, and you really need to understand the market. So, talking of Midland, it's funny. When we purchased their facility, I knew nothing about Radius Plus. We didn't know anything about the square foot per capita and the averages and whatever. All I wanted to know is that the facility was under market in terms of the rates, and it was fully occupied. And those two conditions were present when we bought the deal. Today, when the property came back on the market, and we started doing our regular analysis, went to Radius Plus, start calling brokers, start calling the owners, this and the other, I realized that within what was it? Within 3 mile radius, the square foot per capita was about 42.
Which just for those of you watching that are not storage nerds like Russell and I, the
Yeah.
average nationally is 6. And Michigan as a whole, as a state, is a little bit below the national average. So to be at 42, we're not talking about just a little oversaturated. That's like having 4 McDonald's lined up next to each other on the same corner.
So it was easy to see that it was somewhat overbuilt and oversaturated. The market.
And by the
But
way, Midland, Michigan is not Manhattan, right? Where you can stand
I
on
gotta
both
tell you, the
sides.
funniest thing is the property was still highly occupied, even with all the competition. They raised rents tremendously, and it was still highly occupied. So, to make a long story short, we walked away from the property because we felt that we're not going to be able to do any add-on to the property, and the value add it was just not an opportunity for us. But it was interesting to see the same property just in a different cycle of the
Market.
industry,
Yeah.
and the valuation, and how it would affect the valuation of the property. And
So this
super
begs
interesting.
the $1 million question. How do you make sure that you, by the way, I want to say something before I ask this question. I'm going to ask the question first so I don't forget it, which is how do you make sure you understand where you're at in the market to make sure you're making those decisions right? And I'm going to come back to that, but I want to say something because you said there's an element of forgiveness in the market that allows you to get away with mistakes. You didn't make a mistake on Midland though, because a mistake would be like, hey, we got away with a mistake and we sold this thing at like a 1.5x to our investors in 13 months. You guys sold it at a 5x in 13 months, right? Was that just like complete luck of the market timing? Or I would like to understand because clearly if it was under market prices when you took it over, you got your ability to operate, you pushed prices above the market in a market with 42 square foot per capita. That's not something that happens accidentally. There has to be a process to it.
That's a very good question and a really very interesting point. I think it's a combination of all of the above. When we took over the property was generating 16,500 of a gross income per month. When we sold the property, we're generating 27,500. So in 13 months, we were able to
Almost double the gross.
a little less than double, but yes, we were able to increase the gross income by quite a bit. We also decreased expenses, and we bumped up the occupancy. So we did what we had to do in terms of the value add plan that we had, the business plan that we had. But also, listen, let's not neglect the fact that the market was at the peak, and properties were in very high demand, and every property hitting the market would get multiple offers within the first week. So it was definitely a combination of a good system that we had to implement. We were implement as well as the function of a very hot
Market
market
condition.
at the time.
I just want to
Yeah,
make sure that we establish the fact that this wasn't just luck on you guys' part. Because look, going from 16,000 in gross to 27,000 in gross in 13 months, it doesn't happen by accident, right? Market trends don't
correct.
force that much. Now, definitely help that surge of storage in COVID. But you guys sold that facility relatively early in the pandemic. It's not like
Yes,
waited till the full force of that tidal wave started picking up steam. Goes
right.
right into my next question though. Is it like here you have this facility, you buy it at 16,000 gross, you're at 27,000 gross. How hard was it to make the decision to sell? Because it would seem to be like, hey, this thing's going to be a cash cow for us. Why not hang on to it for a while? How did you read the market so well to get out of it at what seems in hindsight like the absolute perfect time?
That is, I appreciate the credit given. It was not a market read by any stretch of imagination. we just, well, the honest answer is to sell or not to sell is one of the most difficult questions that the owner operator has to face with, especially presenting with an opportunity to sell, because we were presented with an opportunity to make a substantial amount of money for our investors. Um, and first and foremost, we work for them, so we need to look at their best interest before we consider any other option. So an opportunity presented itself, and it was a no-brainer. It was not a no-brainer. No one ever got broke by taking a profit. Yes.
Amen, amen, right? I
No
love
one ever. Look, I've seen a lot of people losing money just because there is some kind of magic number they have in their head that they need to hit, or the pro forma number. Most of the time, that number is imaginary number. It's probably not too realistic, but they want to hit that number no matter what, and then they jeopardize their investors' money. Then they jeopardize the returns for the investors, and then they have to settle maybe 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later for a different number, and then have a very unpleasant conversation with their investors.
This is a
There's no,
great topic to pick up because you guys got into this business in 2019. You've seen like it's like five different market situations that have gone on from 19, obviously, as we got 6 8 10 months into the pandemic in 2020, and there was this surge of people renting storage and prices went through the roof, and you saw 2022, and then the Fed steps in and raise interest rates in 2022. The back half of 2022, still a lot of transaction volume, but then 2023 and 2024, completely different market conditions. How does Russell Nursisoff and David, how do you guys stay plugged into what's going on and able to develop a strategy based on really understanding what's going on in a particular time? Because as you said, if you were buying things in 2023, the way that you were buying things in 2019, it was a recipe for disaster. And I think we'll see some of that because there were some people who are still being very aggressive late into 2022, into 2020, even into early 2024 with their purchase price. Fingers crossed. I hope they come out of it unscathed. But based on what's going on the market, it's easy to see where some people could get hurt. You mentioned Midland, Michigan, right? On the market for less than it was bought for.
yes, unfortunately, I'm not sure if it sold or not. Hopefully, it did. But well, listen, I think it's important to take a moment and to talk about the what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What is the value add business plan that we have when we're looking at the property or we're going into trying to take down the property, right? So what we're looking for is we're looking for mismanaged, mispriced asset where where the facility rates are substantially under market rates, right? So our job as the operator, as the sponsor of the deal is to bridge that gap between what facility charging currently to their tenants and what the market can literally bear at the moment and what the market rates are. This is as simple of a business plan as it gets. Yes, there is a lot of other intricacies. There's a lot of other things that you got to take care of on the expense side, on maybe the facility needs a capex, and you got to fix certain things. But that's more of a down the road. Immediately, you look at the delta between what the facility rates are and what the market rates are. Now, if you find a deal, and I got to make a statement. The baseline is it's a lot more difficult to find a deal like that in the market today than maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. They almost don't exist. There's still some mom and pop, maybe very tertiary market, very rural markets, but it is a lot more challenging to find a deal like that today. But if you can find a deal like that today, even if it's a smaller market, and then you got to look at the other part of the other component of the equation, the population. Are there people to rent the units to? Because very often you can see a deal, or you would consider a deal at 7, 8, 9 caps, even in today's market, but it's so far in the tertiary, or maybe not even tertiary market. I don't know the name for
Sub-tertiary.
tertiary market.
Wisconsin, Presque Isle, Maine.
No, not really. Well, Presque Isle, Maine. Presque Isle, Maine is a different animal. It's a very interesting animal, and I think we should have a separate podcast on it.
Let's talk about that. That happens to be my father's hometown. I'm one of like 100,000 people ever who've driven by this facility that you guys happen to own, which is when we kind of knew that there was going to be we were meant to be together, because anybody that's driven by your facility in Presque Isle, Maine, either lives there or has to come work for you. One of the two. I don't live.
But funny enough, it's a 43,000 square feet, the facility, and I don't think we've ever been under 94% occupancy. And it's the population of that town is 10,000 people, less than 10,000.
Less than 10,000 now, sadly.
So there are other factors in play that we need to talk about, because I think it's going to help other future owners or future developers or future owners, operators.
I think this is a perfect time to wrap things up here. I always keep this to 30 minutes, as you know, but we're going to be back in a couple of weeks. And I think something that you've talked to me that you brought up here that I think is a road that we can go down is breaking down step by step how somebody who's never been in self-storage, because we know there's a lot of people out there who have heard about it, who are interested in getting into it. And what we're going to do is we'll come back in a couple of weeks. We'll talk a little bit about Presque Isle and breaking that down as a lesson for somebody to understand if they're interested in getting into self-storage, exactly what it does take, especially on a value add deal. And I think we've got an opportunity here too, now that Safe Storage USA is getting into ground up development. We can start to kind of talk to people about, hey, what are the differences of those two things? And how does someone, here's the big thing, and you said it, and I love it about you, and you repeat this all the time. Your job is to work for your investors. And I think that's something that's fantastic. You're not thinking of yourself as somebody, hey, I can go buy this thing and I can take a fee for buying it. You don't have that mindset at all.
No, that would be a very wrong approach. No, absolutely not.
But an approach that we know happens. We know there are people out there who are buying things that, hey, listen, you're doing a $3 million purchase. You can slip a $50,000 check into that, and it doesn't make a huge difference in the bottom line. And we know that's happening. So I think this is a fantastic area for Russell Nursisoff to help people, and looking forward to having deeper conversations on that.
And as a follow-up, I think possibly even starting next week, I know we're running into holiday season or whatnot, but starting into next week, I think we should have a series of a podcast addressing step by step what it would take to
exactly. Yep, love it.
Two, as we're learning new things, and we are in the market, we're learning new things every day. As we're learning,
All right.
I think we would love to be able to share that with
You
our
heard it
audience.
on Self Storage Made Simple on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m. First, Russell and I are starting a new podcast, and we're going to break down step by step how do you get into investing in self storage, generally in commercial real estate. Obviously, we have an expertise. Russell has a background in multifamily. We're in the moment developing some ground up industrial flex and making offers in that asset class. We look at boat and RV storage deals as well. So while we're pretty specific in what we're willing to go into, we have a good understanding of some different asset classes. So guys, keep your eyes peeled. We'll announce that too. We'll start that next week. That wraps up this episode of Self Storage Made Simple. I hope you guys can understand why I love having my partner come on so frequently, because not only a wealth of knowledge, but a track record to back up his wisdom, which is a rare find, quite frankly. Somebody who is actually doing it, who is super knowledgeable and able to express it to other people, how they did it. And then the last part, actually willing to share that information. So Russell, thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Looking forward to our next podcast.
Guys, if you have something to sell, if you have a self-storage facility, small bay industrial flex, send it to us. We're always looking. We're looking for raw land, really 4 to 7 acres. Secondary or tertiary markets would be excited to look at that as well. Thanks to PropRise as always, www.proprise.io. Go check them out. An amazing platform for finding your next deal. Guys are great to work with. Happy to give you a demo of the site. And we'll see you guys next week.